So in this video for today, we're going to talk a little bit about fate. And the words for fate in Old Norse culture, as well as an explanation for the nickname I use both for my YouTube channel and for my Facebook page, because it is related to that. So in Norse mythology, we have basically three goddesses or divine entities who are responsible for fate, and these are Urður, Verdandi, and Skuld. So I use two of these names for my online nickname. They don't really mean anything to me. I think I just chose them because I thought it sounded cool. It was way before I really got into this this academic study of Norse culture and mythology. So yeah, don't attach that much importance to it. So Urður and Verdandi and Skuld are the goddesses of fate in Norse mythology. They reside at the roots of the tree Yggdrasill, and there is even a well at the roots of this tree which takes the name after one of the goddesses. It is Urðarbrunner. And what they do at the roots of Yggdrasill is basically to establish the fate of everything and everyone, including the gods. So fate in Old Norse mythology has this really fatalistic aspect related to it, so nobody can escape fate, not even the gods, although Odin does try to do that by raising an army made up of his most successful warriors slain on the battlefield, and he wants to use these warriors at the end of time, at the great battle of Ragnarok, so as to escape the fate that these goddesses have predicted for him. This does not work, however, because he also ends up getting killed, swallowed by the wolf Fenrir, son of Loki. So the first two goddesses, by the way, they are called norns or nornir in Old Norse, and the first two, Urður and Verdandi, they actually come from the same word, from the same verb, which is the verb to become, verða. Verdandi, I'm going to start with this. That ending, NDE, that is the same as the ending ing in English, so it shows a process. So Verdandi would be something like what is happening, what is becoming, if you want, the becoming. So this refers to the present, what is happening now. Urður is also a form of this verb, but it comes from the past tense. So Verdandi is a present participle, as we call it in grammar. Urður comes from a form of the past tense. In the imperfect we have, so from the verb verða we have varð, vart, varð, urðum, urðuð, urðu. So it changes the vowel in the plural form. So this would be something like what has happened, what has become. So it refers to the events of the past. And then we have the third one, who is Skuld. This is from the same root as the English should. So what ought to happen, what should happen in the future, what is bound to happen in the future and cannot be changed. Okay. Now let's look at some primary sources. So we find references to these three maidens who decide the fates of both men and gods in the Poetic Edda. The Poetic Edda is this collection of Old Norse poems written in the 1200s, but poems themselves date back to the 900s, most of them. And in the very first poem of this collection, the Völuspá, which is the poem dealing with the beginning and the end of the world, We have in stanza 20 a reference to these women. So let me read you first the text, and then we will see what it deals with. So, þaðan koma maujar margs vitandi, þrjór þeim se úþoli stendur, úrð hetu eina, aðra verdandi, skoru og skíði, skuld ena þriðju. Þeir logðu, þeir lífkúru, alda bornum, örlog segja. This is the pronunciation, the Middle Ages pronunciation, yeah, from the 1200s. It's not the old, it's not the modern Icelandic one. It's the old Icelandic one. So basically, the text tells us that from there these women come. So from there probably refers from the roots of the world tree, the ash tree, Yggdrasill. They are well-knowing, margs vitandi. They come out of the water. Or se, and they stand in the hall, and one of them is called Urt, the other one is called Verdandi. They carve on sticks, on wooden sticks. This is a reference to the fact that they carve the fate, most probably in runes, they carve the fate of people on short pieces of wood. Skuld is the third one. They lay down laws, maybe logdu. So they lay down what is what should happen. Let's say they lay down what should happen, and they choose life, lífkúru, the life of the children of men, the fate of men. Okay, so. In the source, we have three of them, yeah, the three Nornir. This would be, let's say, canon, if you will, or at least the three most important of them. However, in Snorri and in some other texts, Snorri being the scholar who wrote the Prose Edda, so the Prose Edda is his attempt to organize all this material and all the narratives he had access to. And in the first chapter of his Prose Edda, the Gylfaginning, he also has reference to this. Just a second, because he says something interesting. He says something about Nornir not only being three, but actually being part of several, I don't know, let's say tribes or categories. And besides that, he also says that each and every one of us has a norn from birth, and she somehow influences us. So he says, he says this. Þar stendur salur ein fagur undir askinum við brunnin, og þeim sal koma þrjór maujar, þær svo heita, úrður verdandi skuld. Þessar maujar skapa monum aldur, þær kolum ver nornir, en eru fleiri nornir, þær koma til hvers manns borin að skapa aldur, og eru þessar gottkunningar, en aðrar olfaættar, en einar þriðju dvergaættar, svo sem her segir. So he says that over there is this beautiful hall under the ash tree, so under the world tree, and out of this hall there come three maidens, three women, whose names are Urður, Verdandi, and Skuld, and these maidens, they shape the lives of men. We call them norns, and there are also, besides these here, there are also norns who visit everyone when they are born in order to shape their lives. And these are of divine origin, so of godly origin, and others are of elvish origin, so from the tribe of the elves. And there is a third group who is from the tribe of the dwarfs. And then he quotes something. He quotes quotes a stanza which I think that is found in one of the heroic poems in the Poetic Edda, so not the mythological poems. He revisits this topic of Norning being part of either one of these tribes. So I'm going to skip this stanza because it basically says the same thing, but I repeat, it comes from, it is also present in an older source, so it could have been actually something true about this, or on the other hand, he might have misinterpreted it. Okay, and then ef nornir rodda örlog manna, þó skipta þær gausi ójafnd, sumir hafa gott líf og ríkulíkt, en sumir hafa lítill len eða lof, sumir langt líf, sumir skamt. So, if these norns determine the fates of men, they allot these fates in a very wrong way, in a very unfair way. When some have a good and prosperous life, some have little glory or success, some have a long life, others have a short life. So in Snorri's conception, there are apparently many norns, and each and every one of us has a norn, and it depends on these norns how our lives are going to be. There are also some references in other heroic poems to the fact that, you know, if you have a good norn, you're going to have a good life, and if you have a bad norn, then you're going to have a bad life. Like he says here, góðar nornir og vel etaðar skapa góðan aldur, en þeir menn fyrir ósköpum verða, þó valda því illar nornir. So, good norns, or norns of noble descent, of noble parentage, they shape good lives, but for those people that become victims of bad luck, it is the bad norn who is responsible. Yeah, and speaking of bad norns, there is also this idea prevalent in many of the stories and sagas of the norns having this very strict and very inescapable judgment, and this judgment many times can seem unfair and can seem to be way too terrible or too gruesome. So illar dómur norna. Terrible is the judgment of the Norns, is one of the quotes that is used often in the sagas. The hero Sigurður from the cycle of the Volsungs or the Niflungs, in Germanic continental legend, he says so when he is killed, he says that no one can escape fate. You know, this is also put quite nicely in the movie The 30th Warrior, where Herger says at some point that you can hide in a hole if you wish, but you are still going to bite the dust whenever the Norns have decided. And speaking of fate, this is a point, an important point I wanted to make. So I often see online the term weird to define or to name fate in Old Norse, and I find it a bit misleading. Actually, I find it very misleading because this is the term in Old English, in Anglo-Saxon. So this whole idea of web of weird, as I often see it in these pages talking about Norse mythology, that's not really accurate. So weird, like I said, this is an old English term. It is indeed from the same root as Urður, so one of the Norns, but there is an important difference here. Wirth in Anglo-Saxon poetry is not used as a goddess or with the sense of some kind of divinity. It's just fate as an abstract notion. Yeah, we find it a lot in Beowulf, for example. But in Beowulf, fate is not a goddess, because Beowulf is a poem with a lot of Christian elements. Yeah, and on the other hand, in Old Norse, Urður is one of the goddesses of fate, but is not used in the sense of abstract fate. Yeah, so even in the text I just read to you, we have terms like most often urlog. Urlog is fate. Urlog is orlog. In Dutch means war, yeah, it might have meant both things at some point. We can't really tell which meaning came first, but it's not urður, like the fate of someone. It's not, the texts do not speak about your urður. Other terms which are used are scorp, for example. So this has to do with shaping something. Alderlag, something that is laid for you, or áður. This word is quite difficult to explain. It might have something to do with weaving, but generally speaking, the norns don't really have this image of weaving, spinning women. This was, I think, a corruption from the Greek moire, because in the Norse texts they are represented as maidens who carve on these pieces of wood. Yeah, your fate, skoru or skiði, says the Völuspá, the text, the prophecy of the seers. Yeah, so from the Poetic Edda. So they carve on wood. They do not weave. If this was a theme, at some point it was lost when these texts were written down. And I should add the fact that there is some kind of hint at this being a narrative in mythology, in Norse mythology as well. We have this very terrifying image from one of the sagas, Njol's saga, when there is this man before the battle of Clontarf, who discovers these Valkyries. Actually, they are not goddesses of fate. They're called Valkyries, so the choosers of the slain, the choosers of the dead. And they are weaving a terrible loom made out of things like men's heads or intestines and other body parts. So this might be a hint. It is, however, very unclear if that was indeed the case, if these goddesses of fate were also weaving at some point in Norse mythology. So yeah. And speaking of the moire, I do tend to believe that there is a difference between the moire and the nornir, at least from the texts that are at our disposal now. Well, the moire, so Clotholakis and Atropos, they are the spinner, the measurer of lots, and the cutter, so the one who cuts the thread of life. Sometimes they are not depicted as fatalistic and as rigid as the Nornir. This, however, might be also due to the fact that we have many more texts, either Greek texts or Roman texts, talking about fates, the goddesses of destiny, than we have Norse texts. So sometimes Zeus is bound by these fates as well, so in a similar way as Odin, who cannot escape the judgment of the Norns, but other times he does seem to be their leader and not being subjected to their judgments. In works such as Aeschylus, for example, the author in Prometheus Bound, the author does say that Zeus cannot escape We have other references in Ovid, for example, that no one can break the iron decree of the ancient sisters. But in other sources, like I said, they are actually contributing to Zeus's cause. They are the defenders of Zeus's right to rule, for example. They are also characters in the War of the Titans, of the giants, in many other myths. They are present at the birth of the gods, and they have very important functions. Maybe another hint at this similarity between the Moire and the Nornir. There is this quote from the Iliad, which I find relevant in this context. Such is the way the gods spun for unfortunate mortals, that we live in unhappiness, but the gods have no sorrow. So on the one hand, we have this idea that, our fate is determined and we cannot change it. But the difference is that in Greek mythology, the gods don't really share, or in some sources, in some of the narratives, they don't share this misfortune that is bestowed upon the mortals. So if we look for differences between the two categories, Moire and Nornir, we are definitely going to find them. All right, and at the end of this very presentation, I would also like to mention the fact that the Anglo-Saxon term for fate, so the weird I was talking about earlier, gave us the word weird. So the word weird that we are using today in the sense of strange is actually the Old English word for fate. And I think it had something to do with the depictions of these goddesses of fate in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance as being these terrifying sisters who just cut the thread of life of humans, or who do not let us enjoy our freedom. So I think this is pretty interesting. Either way, it is a very compelling image that we have, both from Norse mythology and from other mythologies. It's certainly an image that maybe does not appeal to us modern people anymore, because we have developed this really strong belief in free will and in our determination of our own fates. The Vikings, for example, on another hand, because they had this fatalistic view of the world, this kind of encouraged them to, accept their lives easier and to engage in battle more fiercely, because they knew that on the other side, if they were able warriors and well-deserving warriors, they could end up in Odin's hall in Valhall. All right, so I hope this has been somewhat interesting for you, and I hope that you will follow my other videos as well. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe, and have a nice day. I'll see you soon.